Why do you dislike that one coworker so much? They do favors for people consisting of doing things no one asked for, such as choosing a schedule because they think you'd prefer the one they didn't take, or talking to the boss about something for you so they can defend what you did. And they act like you owe them for these things. On top of that, they constantly do things outside of policy and act like a victim/martyr when they get into trouble.
It's interesting how some people take it upon themselves to make choices for others, often without consulting them first. They feel like they're helping, but it usually just creates more confusion. I've had a friend like that who would step in uninvited, and then later act like I needed to be grateful. It's a strange dynamic where their good intentions end up feeling more like a burden. Not sure why people choose that path.
He rarely works a full week, doesn't know how to do even a quarter of my job, and if I need a day off, I have to make sure my work is done for how many days I take for vacation, because he refuses to let me train someone to take over my shop. He also throws temper tantrums and storms out of the warehouse at age 50-ish.
That sounds pretty frustrating. It's tough when someone can't hold up their end at work, especially when it affects your time off. I've had a friend who dealt with a similar situation. Their coworker just couldn't take responsibility. It made everything harder for them. Eventually, my friend had to set boundaries to manage stress. It's important to find ways to protect your own time and sanity in those scenarios.
I work with a guy who will straight up lie. Not just bend the truth, but completely fabricate lies out of thin air. It's really hard to deal with someone like this because you have no idea what he's saying behind your back. All you know for sure is he's saying something. In my experience, incompetent people like this will talk in circles, blame others who are completely innocent/uninvolved, or start confrontations only to lie so they can claim to be a victim. It sucks.
Dealing with someone like that is tough. You try to keep things professional, but the constant dishonesty wears you down. It's unsettling not knowing what they might say about you later. You find yourself watching your back and questioning what everyone says. It's draining when you just want to focus on work, but their antics make everything more complicated. It's a real challenge keeping your cool in that situation.
He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room and has to prove it every time he speaks. It's impossible to have a friendly conversation with the guy because he has to share his knowledge and opinions on every topic and refuses to drop a topic unless he thinks he's convinced you that he's right. You can't politely disagree or agree to disagree because it will all be brought up again next time you see him.
I've dealt with a friend like that. Always ready to share his views on everything. It's exhausting, really. You try to have a casual chat, but it turns into a lecture. And if you don't agree, he insists on going around in circles about it. You can't just chill and talk about normal stuff. Sometimes it feels like talking to a brick wall, you know? Just not worth the effort.
It's 2016, and she doesn't know how to operate Internet Explorer. Tell her to hit the blue back arrow in the left corner, and she will hit the red X in the opposite corner every God damn time. Then you have to log everything back in because she doesn't understand. Where did it all go? It was just here. Oh my God.
I remember trying to help my friend with similar tech issues. We spent an afternoon just trying to browse. Every attempt to teach her seemed pointless. She kept clicking the wrong buttons and losing everything. I ended up setting bookmarks for her. It was frustrating, but kind of funny. At least we laughed about it later. Sometimes you realize not everyone picks up tech the same way you do.
Employee who, I literally believe, warps reality around her to better convenience her. We've had conversations where she disagrees with my decision. I tell her we'll try it my way first, and if it doesn't work, we'll reevaluate it. She then leaves my office and tells my assistant manager that I said to do it her way. Assistant comes to ask me, and I of course say no way. We had a meeting last week, along with my boss, to see what her problem is. Not only does she not have a problem, she's behind me 100%. I bring up a conversation we had of her previously telling me something relevant, trying to paint her into a corner, and she twists it all around to make it seem like I'm making up the conversation. After that meeting, she emailed my boss to point out to him how disrespectful I was to her and how I was constantly interrupting her, a pet peeve of mine, so I almost never do it. He came to me saying, "Were we all in the same meeting?" The funny thing is that she interrupted my boss more than once, which he recognized.
Sounds like you've got a real piece of work there. It's odd how she can just reshape conversations like that. It's like she moves parts of reality to fit her story. The meeting must have felt surreal, especially when your boss noticed her interrupting. Kind of makes you question how people can be so disconnected from the truth. It's frustrating, but I guess it's part of dealing with different personalities at work.
Because when he comes in and says good morning and you're on the phone with a customer and just give a little wave of acknowledgement, he'll keep standing next to you until you end your phone call and tell him good morning. Also, everyone else adores him, and that makes me suspicious. Like, does he drug them and is creating a step forward army?
That's pretty funny. It's like he demands a proper greeting. I get the feeling he knows how to work a room, huh? His charm seems to win everyone over, but I get the suspicion. You start to wonder if there's something behind all that friendliness. You can't help but think he's got some secret method going on. It's interesting how some people can just draw attention without even trying.
Had a coworker who, despite being well above 30 and me being the youngest at 20, acted like we were all still playing a high school game, and she was queen. Now she stalks me at my favorite restaurant, and she reports back to everyone where I used to work. I used to work with my ex's mom, and she explodes about me to her son each time I am cited.
That sounds like a pretty uncomfortable situation. It's strange how some people never really grow out of that high school mentality. It must be tough dealing with someone who seems fixated on you like that. It's even worse when it starts affecting your personal life. Hopefully, you can find a way to handle it without too much drama. Just keep doing your thing and try to stay out of her radar.
For clarification, I take care of people with disabilities for work. He hides things and moves things around. Biggest thing recently has been a large hospital cup. We have one client who requires 1,000 cc's of water a day, given through a tube. This is the only client that needs a measured amount of water. And yet, when he works with a specific other client who needs an amount of water equal to his food, both can be measured by syringe. He hides the cup so that only he can use it. Makes it difficult to measure the water. He moves things around seemingly randomly and with no reason. Most recently, he seems to think that all of our plungers belong in one bathroom. He in general doesn't care what the other employees are doing, which causes all of us to hate working with him. Best example is that he doesn't make dinner unless it's explicitly told to him, which has led to an hour late dinner tonight because he didn't make dinner while I was with another client at a medical appointment.
It sounds like working with that person can be frustrating. It's tough when someone doesn't take the role seriously. Hiding important items really complicates things, especially when it comes to caring for clients. You'd think everyone would want to make the process smoother, but it seems like he just adds extra challenges. Teamwork is important in that kind of job, and it's a shame he's not on board.
He is really loud. I'm a sysadmin, and we work 5 feet from each other in cubicles. He's an awesome guy, but he is really loud and talkative. I don't mind it when it's in doses, and thankfully we only work 3 days together, otherwise I think I would snap at him. I mean, I can even hear him over my headphones.
I get that. Sometimes you just need quiet while working, especially in a job like that. It's cool that he's a good guy though. It's nice to have someone to talk to, but too much noise can be distracting. I guess it helps that it's only 3 days a week. If it were more, it could get a bit overwhelming. Boundaries are important, even with friends at work.
He's a nice guy. I'm sitting next to him right now. I don't hate him, but he is so loud, and he's always looking over to my cubicle to see what I'm doing for no reason. And whenever I talk to my girlfriend in another cubicle, he makes a degree, face, and or air humps, but there's one guy who's basically unanimously hated across the team. He's been here for a while, but he's not as smart as he thinks, and he acts like a supervisor, even though he has absolutely no authority. He'll call people out for menial things in the group chat. Then when the other person privately messages him to ask what the fuck, he'll say, "Take it up with management, please." I feel bad for the guy because I know he doesn't have many friends, but not bad enough to be his friend.
Sounds like a typical office situation. You've got that one loud guy who's just a bit too into your business. It can be awkward, especially with the weird faces. Then there's the guy everyone avoids, acting like he's in charge. It's tough being in that position, but yeah, not enough to want to hang out with him. Just keeps things interesting, I guess.
This is my coworker. He's a really cool dude and otherwise a lot of fun to work with. But even the most simple request can loop into a 5+ minute tangent. Him, "Hey, the cherry cola's out. Can you go change it?" Me, "Yes, sure." Him, "I mean like when you're not busy. You know, like whenever you get chance." Me, "Gotcha." Him, "I mean you don't gotta do it right this second. Just like I'd rather be done before Paul and Linda get in." Me, "Walking to change the cherry cola, understood." Him, "Because I mean like you know how Paul gets, he'll throw a hissy fit if the soda's not on the level because then the customers start whining." Me, "Soda is change done." Him, "And then Linda, you know she and her boyfriend just broke up, so she's not in the best mood right now, so it's best to stick back and not set her off." Me, "Haha that Linda." And like journey, it goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, I know a guy like that. Always going off on tangents. The simplest things turn into a whole saga. Just the other day, I asked him to pass the sugar, and he ended up telling me a full backstory about why he drinks his coffee black now. I just needed a sprinkle of sugar, but somehow I got a whole life lesson instead. It's like, cool dude, but I just want my coffee sweet, you know?
Oh man, you just described my mom. She would always clean up stuff before I could, or get drinks for my parties without being asked, and then would make a huge fuss about it, ranting how much I depend on her and how she has to do everything for me. I mean, it was nice that she did it, but it was unnecessary and she was pretty rude about it all the time.
I get what you mean. It's like they want to help but end up making you feel bad. You appreciate the help, but the way they bring it up can ruin it. My friend had a similar experience with his dad. Always jumping in to fix things without asking, then acting like it was a burden. Sometimes you just want to handle your own stuff without the guilt trip.
We had a guy in my work like this. Our head of HR came down and gave him soap and shampoo in front of everybody after being told over and over to take a shower before work. I work in a plant, so the heat doesn't go well with Bo. The bad part is we have 8 showers in our locker room with a soap dispenser provided.
That sounds pretty awkward. I've seen similar situations where a coworker just didn't seem to get it. It makes it tough for everyone else, especially in a closed environment like a plant. You'd think with showers available, it wouldn't even be an issue. But sometimes people just don't realize how their habits affect others. It's a shame that it had to be handled that way in front of everyone.
Mine's similar. I was once told he's a great guy, but really stinky when I first got hired. Not to mention he eats egg salad all day and then drops these hot, wet nuclear farts. They're so bad you can feel it. It's like you have to wade through it to get out. He got in a fight with a coworker once who then left a bar of Irish Spring on his windshield.
I had a similar experience with a coworker. He ate tuna every day for lunch. The smell lingered in the break room long after he left. One day, someone left a pack of air fresheners on his desk as a joke. It didn't help the situation, but it became a running gag around the office. Whenever he walked by, we'd just laugh and wave the air fresheners like they were magic.
I had a woman who I worked with who would do this, and also talk to her phone and fitness tracker. Oh, you're ringing. Let's see who it is. Oh, just Mom. Well, Mom, I'm fine, but I'm working, so please don't bother me. Okay, sent. Why are you vibrating fitness tracker? Okay, I get it, I'll go for a walk to get a drink of water. Okay, now, let me just lock my computer. Control, Alt, Delete. Locked? Are you locked? Okay, you're locked. I'm gonna go get a drink of water. The day I quit, I laughed all the way out the door.
I had a colleague like that too. Always talking to her phone and checking her step count during meetings. She'd pause mid-sentence to respond to a message or take a fitness break. It was kind of distracting but also amusing. One day, after another episode, I just stood there shaking my head. When I left, I couldn't help but chuckle at the whole scene. Just too much for the office, honestly.
This makes me so glad I'm a nurse. I still have to deal with people being annoying, but God, at least half the time I can hide out in my patients' babies' room to escape the Dwight of our unit from leaving post. It's in notes and messages for everyone and their mother regarding every little thing that could be fixed or done minutely better. Face with rolling eyes, face with rolling eyes, face with rolling eyes.
Being a nurse does come with its own set of challenges. I remember when my friend worked in a pediatric unit. She often found herself escaping to the patient rooms just to avoid constant reminders from a colleague. It was her little retreat. Sometimes you just need that space away from the chatter to focus on what really matters. Babies don't leave post-its, you know?
I happen to work down the hallway from her, so I only catch snippets when I grab some coffee or water. I tend to feel more pity than anger, though. Probably because I rarely have to deal with it. Okay, now let's close this window, drop this folder over here, and open a new window. Hit print. Save to desktop. To top it off, this woman looks like she's wasting away. She's in her late 40s, but looks like she's in her 80s. Frail, hunched over, balding. Everything is an emergency. So much so, in fact, that she literally runs whenever she thinks no one is looking. The other day, she had to grab something from her car. As soon as she stepped foot outside, she broke out into a sprint. Well, as close to a sprint as she could muster.
It's tough to see someone in that state. You know, I bumped into a guy at work once who was always stressed out. Like, every little thing seemed like a crisis for him. He looked worn down, always rushing. One day, I saw him jog to his car, and it was just sad to watch. Sometimes you feel bad for people like that. They're carrying a weight that's hard to understand unless you're in their shoes.
Holy shit, I worked with a woman like that. I'm actually pretty sure there were two of her, the good, nice person and the mean one. They didn't get along. I spent quite a while hiding in a bathroom, once while she sat in the stall next to me, having a conversation with herself. Nice side, I'm so glad we get to go shopping for new work clothes today. Maybe I'll get some cheerful shirts like pink or green. Mean side, said in a much deeper voice, no, those colors aren't professional, you idiot. Black, white, gray, or nothing. Stupid. Nice side, oh okay. You're right. Only professional colors. I was legitimately afraid she would come kill me if she found out I was in the other stall. I just held my breath, put my feet up on the seat, and prayed to any deity that would listen, then she'd leave.
That's a wild scenario. I can relate to the feeling of being caught in an awkward situation, especially when the people around you are unpredictable. It's odd how some folks can have such different sides, almost like they're battling with themselves. Hiding out and trying to avoid trouble, that's something I've done too. I remember a time when I just wanted to disappear during a tense moment. It's a weird mix of fear and disbelief.
Oh my god, I had my first experience with one of these at my last job. I was working part-time as the manager of a photo kiosk. I had a new employee who needed training on a photo editor. Nothing major, just outline anything that shouldn't be in the picture. We used a green screen and right-click to delete it. This usually takes an hour to 90 minutes of training altogether. She had 8 hours of training on her first day, and on her second day, she had forgotten literally everything. She didn't even know how to use a computer mouse. She didn't show up after her second day.
That sounds pretty rough. I remember training someone for a simple task too. Took hours, and they just couldn't get it. It's frustrating putting in all that effort, and then they don't come back. I guess some people just aren't cut out for certain roles. It's a bummer, but you move on.
I have an employee like this. The other thing she can't do is take something I've taught her and apply it to a similar situation. It could require the exact same steps to correct, but because the problem doesn't present exactly the same as before, it requires me to teach her again. Then I get, oh, it's just like when blah blah blah. Yes, you moron, that's what I said at the beginning. Needless to say, I'm documenting all of this. I've told her it's an issue, but it's just a corner her brain can't turn.
I get what you mean. It's frustrating when someone can't connect the dots. You try to guide them through a problem, and they just don't see the similarity. It's like repeating yourself for no reason. Documenting everything seems smart, especially if it keeps happening. It's tough to watch someone struggle with the basics, even when you've already explained it. Sometimes people just can't make those mental leaps.
I work with a guy like that. Spent 8 years digging ditches, and you had to show him how to do it again every day. They didn't know it. But I was a couple months into the job and making $4 more an hour than them plus bonuses. Mainly because I learned how to do all the jobs and brought on better workers.
Sounds like you had a pretty interesting situation. It must have been frustrating to see someone struggle with tasks they should have been able to handle after that long. But getting paid more for knowing the ropes and improving the team makes sense. It's always good to have people who can step up and show others how it's done. Guess you really showed your value there.
When I worked at a factory, we would have people like this come in from temp agencies all the time. One guy couldn't run a simple control panel with maybe 12 buttons labeled with their very specific and very simplistic move thing up, down, etc. And we had to show him almost every other day how to use the panel. It was infuriating. Thank God management finally caught on he was dead weight. He didn't seem mentally handicapped in any way other than the fact that he couldn't remember these simple instructions. Crazy how the mind works.
It's frustrating when you have to keep repeating the same instructions. I've seen it happen too. Some people just struggle with certain tasks, no matter how simple they seem. It's like the info just doesn't stick. I guess everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. At least management figured it out in the end, but it must have been tough dealing with that day after day. Just goes to show how different we all are.
I probably sigh way too much at work. The sighs are never about work. In the middle of a mindless or repetitive routine, my brain wanders. Eventually, it wanders on to get in my car, through inspection. The time I did something embarrassing in college, some shitty thing I did to someone last week. Things like that. It is never really about anything I'm doing at the moment, though.
I get that. Sometimes your mind just drifts. At work, I often lose focus too. I'll think about past mistakes or times I felt awkward. It can be weird how those thoughts pop up when you're doing something else. It's almost like your brain's way of reminding you of stuff you want to forget. Sighing seems like a natural reaction to that.
I had a coworker like this. She blew through her money buying random crap on Amazon and bought expensive foods, think Whole Foods, and then would come to work and say that she's so broke and had people give her some spare change so she could buy vending machine lunch. At one point, she wanted to go to an expensive arts college and take out a loan of at least $20,000 for it. Try to convince us that it was her passion to go there and she didn't care about her debt. For fuck's sake, You're 26? You should be monitoring your spending already. Oh. And before she left my workplace, she didn't have any savings left in her bank account. So she started withdrawing from her 401k account. Yeah, no matter how often you try to give her financial advice, she wouldn't listen to a word of it. It was exhausting.
I had a friend like that too. Always complaining about being broke, but would buy the latest gadget or fancy coffee every day. We tried to help with budgeting tips, but she just shrugged it off. Then she ended up taking loans for a trip that she couldn't afford. Despite all the warnings, she kept making the same choices. It was frustrating to watch her struggle while ignoring the obvious.
Like those people who have an involuntary laugh to things that they say themselves, that also aren't even jokes. Wow, it's a hot one out there today. I heard dur HUR. I heard it's supposed to be 90 degrees tomorrow too. Dur like at the end of every commentary they make, they have to give a laugh at the end.
I had a friend like that in high school. He'd say the most mundane things and then just burst out laughing. I forgot my lunch today, haha. No one really got it, but it became a thing. Eventually, we all just started laughing along, even if we didn't know why. It became less about the joke and more about the vibe. Good times, just rolling with it.
I have a pathological liar as a coworker. I've heard shit like he has $7 million, he was bitten by a diamondback rattlesnake, he told our company VP to shut up. He tried to convince me he plays a video game that he has no fucking clue about, and just says he hasn't played in a while, so he forgets specific things that are like extremely basic. Literally lies about the most pointless shit. But he's never lied about work-related things, so I guess I don't have a problem with him. He just lies to make himself seem more interesting/edgy.
Sounds like you've got quite the character at work. It's funny how some people feel the need to exaggerate their lives. I mean, who needs $7 million? It's just wild. I guess it adds some entertainment to the day, though. As long as it doesn't affect the job, it can be one of those just let it roll off situations. People can be strange sometimes.
Ugh, this is my coworker. She constantly complains about all these health problems she has, but literally any solution we offer can't be done. For example, she complains her stomach hurts when she has dairy. Cut back on it. No, I can't have my coffee without cream. And milk makes it taste bland. Okay, try tea. It still has caffeine, but can be easier on your stomach. I can't have tea, it's not as good as coffee. Okay, you could go to the doctor to test for lactose intolerance. My doctor's an idiot. Maybe you should get a new family doctor if you don't like your current one. Well, it's not that easy. Okay, so be in pain then. Jesus. She also randomly bred her dogs and sold the puppies on Kijiji, which was ridiculous.
Yeah, I know the type. Always has a reason to keep doing what's bothering them. You try to help, but they push back every time. It's like they want to complain more than find a solution. And the dog breeding thing? That's a whole other level. Just shows how some people don't think things through. You can only offer advice so much before it gets old. Just let them be.
A coworker of mine told me that his fiancée had to deal with a receptionist at work that thought she was God. Started screaming at the fiancée one day when she tried to move the first aid kit from the receptionist's chosen spot to the designated spot chosen by the safety committee. I don't understand how you can be that full of yourself when you're the receptionist at an engineering company. You are so replaceable compared to everyone else around you. P.S. She was replaced.
It's wild how some people act like they run the place, even in a position that isn't all that important. I get that everyone wants to feel valued, but losing it over a first aid kit is a bit much. It's one of those situations where you realize that every role is essential, but not everyone sees it that way. In the end, it worked out, she got replaced.
Oh, and she smokes like 2 packs of Pall Malls a day in her car with the windows rolled up. So when she comes back in from her breaks, she reeks like an ashtray. I have a coworker that does this too, and as a fellow, much lighter, like 2 cigs a day, smoker, it makes no sense to me. You're already traveling outside. People can still see you in the car. You've got a horrible hacking cough, and you smell like a forest fire when you come back in. We work with food, for God's sake.
I get that. I have a friend who smokes a lot, like really too much, and it baffles me why they don't at least roll down the window. They come back into the office smelling awful and coughing, and it's awkward. We're in a place that serves food, so the smell kinda lingers everywhere. I mean, you want to enjoy your lunch, not feel like you're sitting next to a barbecue pit.
I've been working nights this year at a grocery store. We had a guy who would do this to an extreme. Every 5 minutes he'd just disappear. Once while I was taking cases out to my aisle, I saw him exit the public bathroom upstairs, then walk to the employee bathroom across the runway. It wasn't long before he was fired.
Sounds like a typical night shift. You never know what's going to happen. That guy disappearing all the time shows how some people just can't handle the routine. It's not surprising he got fired, considering how often he was in the bathroom. Must have been an interesting atmosphere to work in, but I guess it's part of the job.
This is when I switch to nonverbal responses like nodding, smiling, and giving the thumbs up, but sometimes even that doesn't work. How are you not getting this, Jeremy? You're the only one that has made any noise for the past full minute, and my entire body is in the hallway outside of your office pointed away from you, including my eyeballs.
I had a similar experience once. I was trying to get my point across in a meeting, but one guy kept talking over me. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and just stared at the wall. It was like, how obvious do I need to be? Eventually, I just nodded along while thinking about lunch. Sometimes, it's simpler to just zone out.
I have accepted that I am this person. It sucks because my dad does it too. I don't know if it is a learned behavior or a generic trait. It used to not be this bad, but the older I get, the more I realize how much I'm becoming like him when he was my age. That means when I get to be his age, I'm going to be as annoying as he is today. It looks like you got all your stuff and you are headed to your car, but let me stop you so we can talk about my dilemma for 10 minutes. We can talk about something else if you want. My code is compiling and I'm too afraid to be alone with my thoughts. What are you doing this weekend? That's cool. See you Monday. Hey, wait, did you get that email I sent you? Okay, we'll talk later.
I get what you're saying. It's tough realizing you're turning into someone you find annoying. I've seen it happen too. Sometimes, it's like a natural progression or maybe just habits rubbed off. It can be hard to break free from those cycles. I find myself doing similar things sometimes, avoiding silence by making small talk, you know? It's just how we cope. Conversations can feel like a distraction more than anything.
A narrator. I work with someone like this, and it's maddening. She'll come over to my desk when we get a group email to ask if I got the email, then ask what it's about. She'll then push and push until I read her the GD email, or she reads it from my screen. Then, again, what's it about?
I can relate to that. I had a colleague who always needed everything explained in detail. Whenever we got updates, she'd come over and want a full rundown. It didn't matter if I already provided the info. It just kept going in circles. It was frustrating, but over time, I learned to keep my responses short and just redirect her to the email. Sometimes, it's easier that way.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.